Oh, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. I want to watch this. Scout, you better not be ordering DoorDash while we capture this objective.
Well, folks.
But soldier. New from Carl's Jr. This piece of shit.
It's a big question I've been getting since we released the trailer for my interview with President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine is, why go to a nation under fire? Why take your crew and take that risk? And the answer is simple, because the truth matters and facts matter. We want you to be smarter and know more things. That's what this show is for. You, our Daily Wire members, deserve the truth. This is the kind of journalism your support makes possible. This is the community that fights for your values. Join us right now at dailywire.com/subscribe. So, last night, Vladimir Putin's Russia blanketed Ukraine with missiles and drones in what was perhaps the largest scale air attack on the country since 2022. One missile apparently now struck an apartment building in Kyiv and killed 9 people and wounded another 63. This, of course, is a war zone. A little bit earlier yesterday, the Trump administration rolled out its proposed outline for a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. This was being negotiated in London. It's a peace deal under which Ukraine would have been forced to accept Russian annexation of Crimea. That's the very southern portion of Ukraine that is on the Black Sea, as well as control of eastern Ukraine. Russia is currently in control of large swaths of eastern Ukraine and has been since 2014. It would have removed NATO membership from the table for Ukraine. Ukraine obviously is interested in joining NATO because that would mean that an attack on a NATO member would allow for Article 5 invocation, meaning other countries would have to come to Ukraine's defense. The deal would prevent Ukraine from becoming a NATO member. It would have provided little or nothing in the way of security guarantees for Ukraine. So the proposed Trump deal did not obligate the United States to come to Ukraine's defense or even allow for the EU's defense of Ukraine. Maybe they could have, maybe they couldn't have, but that was unclear. And it also would have full-scale ended sanctions on Russia. So clearly this peace deal gave Russia a bunch of things that
literally, that's all shit for Russia.
Russia was looking for if it had been accepted by Ukraine. Russia has not accepted a peace arrangement along any of these lines. We should be clear about this. Essentially, the proposal that was published was the United States, Europe, and maybe Ukraine kind of negotiating against themselves because there's no one else at the table right now. Now, Zelensky rejected handing over Crimea legally because that would be making a major legal concession without actually getting anything from Russia in return. If you preemptively say Crimea is now part of Russia, you've now said it, and Zelensky doesn't want to do that. He has accepted the Trump proposal for a 30-day ceasefire without any preconditions. That has been true for weeks. Vladimir Putin has not for 1 second, which is why last night the Russian missiles were falling on Kyiv. They're also falling on Lviv, which is in the western part of the country. It was a bad night in Ukraine. Now, Putin, again, has at no point actually given any sign that he truly wants the war to end. If you want the war to end, the question is, will Zelensky accept an end to the war, and will Putin accept an end to the war? Zelensky has said he will. Putin has given no sign whatsoever that he...
It's not just about ending the war, obviously. Everyone has said this.
Has at no point actually given any sign that he truly wants the war to end. If you want the war to end, the question is, will Zelensky accept an end to the war, and will Putin accept an end to the war? Zelensky has said he will. Putin has given no sign whatsoever that he actually will. Instead, it seems like he's slow playing this thing. He seems to be biding his time, waiting for the United States to pull out of negotiations and out of funding Ukraine entirely. And that's a bet that could pay off, given the Trump administration's repeated statements that if no deal is accepted, the United States will simply walk away from the table. Here was Vice President J.D. Vance saying just that yesterday.
Well, I'm going to echo something Secretary Rubio said, which is, look, we've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and the Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process. We've engaged in an extraordinary amount of diplomacy, of on-the-ground work. We've really tried to understand things from the perspective of both the Ukrainians and the Russians. What do Ukrainians care the most about? What do the Russians care the most about? And I think that we've put together a very fair proposal.
Okay, well, whether the proposal is fair or not, if Russia refuses to accept the deal...
And then the proposal that... I'm sorry, maybe I'm not understanding. That entire proposal was free shit for Russia, wasn't it? Unless it was talking about a different one, I don't know.
The United States walks away. Russia is the party that actually benefits from that. The Trump administration's pressure right now has been almost solely relegated to Ukraine at this point. That's just the reality. President Trump unleashed a post on Truth Social yesterday attacking Vladimir Zelensky and blaming him for the continuation of the war. He stated, quote, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is boasting on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about here. This statement, says President Trump, is very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia in that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Hussein Obama and is not even a point of discussion. Nobody's asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory, but if he wants Crimea, why didn't they fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed handed over to Russia without a shot being fired. Well, if that's true, and nobody's asking for Zelensky to actually recognize Crimea as Russian territory, what's the discussion that's happening? President Trump continues, the area also houses, for many years before the Obama handover, major Russian submarine bases. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that make it so difficult to settle this war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. We can have peace, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. I have nothing to do with Russia, but have much to do with wanting to save, on average, 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week who are dying for no reason whatsoever. The statement made by Zelensky is they will do nothing but prolong the killing field, and nobody wants that. We're very close to a deal, but the man with no cards to play should now finally get it done. I look forward to being able to help Ukraine and Russia get out of this complete and total mess. Again, this is President Trump saying this. It would have never started if I were president. Unquote. Now listen, President Trump's frustration is clear and understandable. But let's be also clear about this. For this conflict to end, Russia has to come to the table. Why is the question what Ukraine is willing to do, when the real question here is why Russian aggression has not stopped for a single moment?
Thank you, Mr. Benjamin.
The American people, obviously, we need to understand just why.
Benny boy. Sometimes I just think that we're so fucking lost and gone. It's a little bit refreshing to hear Benjamin be a little bit smart, because I know he can.
It is important for Ukraine not to collapse amidst the escalation of Russia's invasion.
Smart equals say what I
with
like.
The Russia-Ukraine war now in year number 3, with tens of thousands of dead on each side and hundreds of thousands wounded. Probably 50,000 dead on the Ukrainian side, maybe 200,000 dead on the Russian side. With eastern Ukraine and Crimea currently in Russian hands, and with the Trump administration obviously trying to end the war through negotiation, we felt that now is a vital time to actually travel to Ukraine to discuss this crisis with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. The American people have a lot of questions, and they have a right to know why they should care about this conflict in a faraway place, and to have their questions answered on matters ranging from how their tax dollars are being spent, to the treatment of Christians in Ukraine, from the nature of Russia's aspirations in Ukraine, to the Ukrainian desire to remain free of Russian domination. So, the trip into Ukraine wasn't exactly easy. It's, of course, a war zone. First, we traveled some 12 hours from Florida to Krakow, that's Poland, and then we took a 10-hour car ride with security from Poland to Kyiv. The border crossing was pretty much deserted. Not a lot of people are trying to get into Ukraine at this point in time. The country itself, it's a beautiful country. The breadbasket of the continent, Western Ukraine, which is what you drive through to get to Kyiv, is rolling farmland dotted with forest. My great-great-grandparents came originally from this general region, Belarus, Poland, Ukraine. I tried to see it through their eyes as we were driving. What it must have been like 150 years ago, before the carnage of the Ukrainian Holodomor, which is the Stalin-created genocidal starvation campaign against Ukrainian farmers and their families, and against those who oppose the evil of Soviet Stalin-created what it must have been like 150 years ago, before the carnage of the Ukrainian Holodomor, which is the Stalin-created genocidal starvation.
Is that a way to say it? I've only heard it as Holodomor, but I also don't know anything about it. I guess it's like a starving thing. Yeah, that's all I know.
Farmers and their families, and against those who oppose the evil of Soviet collectivization. And what it was like before the Nazi invasion in 1941 and the mass slaughter of Jews, with roving bands of SS mowing down tens of thousands of Jews over open pits in Babi Yar, shipping Jews via train to death camps all over Europe. Timothy Snyder, a historian and author of a book called Bloodlands, Europe Between Hitler and Stalin, writes, quote, during the years that both Stalin and Hitler were in power, more people were killed in Ukraine than anywhere else in the Bloodlands or in Europe or in the world. For both Hitler and Stalin, Ukraine was more than a source of food. It was the place that would enable them to break the rules of traditional economics, rescue their countries from poverty and isolation, and remake the continent in their own image. If you know history, the voices of all of our brothers' blood cries out from the ground.
Fuck off.
Of Ukraine. And the history of Ukraine's suffering doesn't stop with World War II. After the war, the Soviet Union again was in control of Ukraine. Its history was then steamrolled and homogenized to fit Soviet presumptions. After the Cold War, after the Soviet Union fell, Ukraine broke free. It became independent. It gave up its nuclear weapons in exchange for security guarantees from the West. Didn't go well for Ukraine, obviously. Torn between the attraction of joining the post-Soviet West and Russian pressure from the East, the country was governed by a series of corruption-ridden governments, culminating in the victory of Viktor Yanukovych, whose pro-Russian swing led to the so-called Maidan Revolution of 2014. Yanukovych was ousted. Vladimir Putin, dictator of Russia, seeing Ukraine slipping out of his grasp, then launched invasions of the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine, as well as Crimea. Both of those were largely Russian-speaking areas that favored a closer relationship with Russia, but they didn't actually want to be fully ruled by Russia, by the polling data available at the time. Instead, Putin brought in what were called little green men, who he said were sort of domestic insurgents. They were actually Russian soldiers to take over those areas. Citizens of those areas were brought under Russian control. And then came 2022. Sensing weakness from the American-led North Atlantic Treaty Organization in the aftermath of Joe Biden's surrender of Afghanistan to the Taliban,
Bro, fuck.
launched a full-scale invasion of the rest of Ukraine. When the war began, few expected Ukraine to survive. Indeed, the first Russian push into Ukraine came within 10 or 12 kilometers of Kyiv, the capital city, which is located on both sides of the Dnieper River. Actually, Vladimir Zelensky was made offers by the Europeans to flee the country. But Ukraine instead fought back. Their forces actually pushed the Russians back toward the east and toward the south. After 3 years of war, that is where the lines remain. Carnage continues in Kharkiv and Zaporozhye. Bombs continue to fall. Drones continue to fly, particularly last night. The Russian government, since 2014, in an effort to Russify Ukrainian children, has abducted tens of thousands of kids from eastern Ukraine and Crimea back into Russia. As the New York Times reported in 2023, quote, Russian officials have made it clear their goal is to replace any childhood attachment to home with a love for Russia. Hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers and contractors have died, according to the BBC. Around 50,000 Ukrainians have been killed, according to Zelensky's government. As of February, the numbers are probably higher. President Trump's entry into office provided the possibility of something new. Pledging to end the war, the Trump administration insisted on negotiations, and to that end, put pressure on both Zelensky and Vladimir Putin to come to the table. After a fraught conversation with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance in the Oval Office, Zelensky has agreed to an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. Putin has agreed to nothing. The United States, under Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, continues to advocate for Ukrainian concessions, ranging again from recognition of Russian territorial annexation to abandonment of intent to join NATO. Putin, for his part, has mouthed words of interest, but has shown little willingness to make any real concessions at all. That is where things stood as we traveled into Ukraine. We have some more of this in a moment. First, you know what I hate? Big government. You know what else I hate? Being overcharged. Pure Talk, the cell phone company I use for business every day, is helping you save money on your cell phone bill. That is correct. Pure Talk says, I don't think so, to $100 a month cell phone plans. That's just wasteful, irresponsible. Instead, they're offering America's most dependable 5G network at America's most sensible prices.
That's
Listen to this.
fucking awesome.
Free left call now. Sports shows up qualifying plan. Also, not everyone who handles your personal information is going to be as careful as you are. It only takes one mistake to. Fortunately, there's LifeLock.
Oh my god.
With City, an app on our phones, it sounded at a material disadvantage in the early days of the war, engaged in the most highly publicized aspects of the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian forces, drone alert, % off, terms apply. It got dark as we were driving. As we neared the city, an app on our phones, it sounded a drone alert.
It said phone, that's why.
Drone warfare has become one of the most highly publicized aspects of the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian forces, at a material disadvantage in the early days of the war, engaged in technological creativity to counter Russian advances. Russia then responded by building new drones with Chinese help, as well as by importing drones from Iran. By the time we reached Kyiv, the drone sirens had stopped. After a very short night in the center of Kyiv, we visited the site of the Babin Yar massacre, which is just across the street from a television tower struck by a Russian missile in the early days of the war. We visited a blown-out building, hit multiple times in a variety of Russian attacks. We visited a memorial to the victims of the Holodomor. The city is beautiful, but it obviously feels pretty empty. Approximately 7 million Ukrainians have left the country during the war. That's out of a total population of 44 million or so in 2021. I attended a meeting of the All-Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations with representatives of 15 different religious sects attending to discuss religious freedom and traditional values with Zelensky. A member of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine was joined by a member of the Catholic Church, for example, to ask for a Ministry of Family to foster higher birth rates and support more kids in Ukraine. Other members of the council asked President Zelensky about military deferment for members of the clergy. And then finally, it was time to sit down with President Zelensky. President Zelensky looked weary, but upbeat. He is, of course, very camera-friendly, given his history as a TV star. We sat in the shadow of the St. Sophia Cathedral, the first foundations of which were laid in 1011, centuries before the Tsardom of Russia. Here, then, is part one of our interview with President Vladimir Zelensky in Kyiv, Ukraine, at perhaps the most crucial moment for the negotiations yet in the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Can you please just hear me out? No.
Oh,
All work management platforms are the same. They take forever to learn.
Crazy.
President Zelensky, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming, Ben.
So I want to start by asking you about the meeting that you had in the Oval Office with the president and the vice president. This is almost a couple of months ago. Obviously, things went sideways. How do you feel that you could have handled things better with the president and vice president?
After
Tablet.
meeting, our teams had plenty of meetings. Well, not enough of meetings to put an end to this war, but still there were positive meetings. There were meetings that were fruitful, and our teams have agreed that everyone will support the complete ceasefire. And that was a meeting in Saudi Arabia. Then there was another meeting. Then it was a meeting in France. Tomorrow, by the way, there will be a meeting in London. So as you can see, that what's important to us is the teams of Ukraine and the United States, plus our European colleagues. That is, our team has started to work together with the United States, and I can see some positive things about this. I'm grateful to this, to all the partners, and I'm grateful to President Trump for this, as well as to Keir Starmer and to the Emmanuel Macron and to all the leaders who constantly support this very beginning, the complete ceasefire. It's the beginning of the path towards the stable and hopefully fair and just peace. And that is why I think we do have good meetings right now, and I would say good possibilities. Now the question is Russia, and that is the only element in this construct that is not yet ready to put an end to this war, and we hope on the strengths of the United States, on the strengths in terms of the sanctions, on the experience of the United States, and the influence that the United States has on Russia. So for the Russia to agree to put an end to this war, it depends on them. As for our meeting in the Oval Office, I kept saying that we needed this meeting. We had to talk over a variety of elements. We had different meetings, fruitful and more philosophic meetings, I would say, on different stages of our life, and the meeting with President Trump as well. So I think that the meeting in the Oval Office, it did not help Ukraine, it did not help to the United States. And no, and I think we should, when Ukraine and the United States are having the meeting, we should give light to people. We should demonstrate this path that I've already mentioned, to a path towards the end of this war. We count on the strategic partnership, and we always respected the people of the United States. and the choice of the United States and the support coming from the United States. And that is why I think that we will have more fruitful meetings with President Trump. But you have to understand, Ukraine, that we are defending against the Russia's offense. And we believe Russia is an enemy. We believe United States is a true and real friend. We know that the United States has a position to serve as the mediator in this conflict. That is the choice made by the United States. But we consider the United States as a strong strategic partner with an influence. And we would really like to have these two strengths that would be used towards Russia, so that the force would be towards the Russia, because they're the one who's the aggressor. And we would like really to have this common understanding that Russia is the aggressor, not we. And we really want the United States not to search for the balance in these words. I understand what President Trump is willing to have. I highly respect the fact that he's searching for an approach. That's his approach. Somebody might have different approach, but you shouldn't be saying that Ukraine and Russia started this war. I believe that it's painful for our people to hear, and this is why we respond in this way. We're talking about the dignity of our country. We have demonstrated that we are ready to protect our dignity in any situation. I'm doing that as the president. We have clearly demonstrated that in the beginning of the war. It was the war. It still remains the war. We have only one enemy, Russia and Putin. And that is why, even if we're talking a diplomatic environment, everything that is related to the Ukraine's dignity, I will always defend it. This is my job. I'm the president. I'm the guarantor of the Constitution of Ukraine.
So, Mr. President, there are a lot of questions in the United States about how American funding is spent. So we've spent nearly allocated nearly $200 billion to the defense of Ukraine. There are lots of questions about where the money is going, to pensions, to war profiteering, to corruption. How do you answer those questions? What kind of transparency can you provide to the American people to guarantee that their taxpayer dollars are being used in the best possible way to fight Russia, to defend Ukraine, and to ensure that if the United States wants...
Are we even sending fucking dollar bills to them? I feel like people have said this over and over. Have we sent any dollar bills to them? Maybe a few, but like, when we say we sent like $90 billion worth of aid to Ukraine, it's not a pallet with $90 billion on it. It's like old tanks and ammo and shit, isn't it? It's like military equipment.
Ought it be possible by the United States of where those dollars are going?
Duh.
Yes, let me start with the end of your question. As for the audit, the United States have to understand there's United States inspectors working. There's the inspectors of European countries, because they've also allocated the money, and we are also grateful to them. Just as to the United States, we highly respect the support and assistance coming from the people of the United States as well as the people of Europe. That is why we have told at once that we are ready to have any inspections from the very beginning of the war. The inspectors coming from the United States, Europe, and our own inspectors, they're working. We have complete reporting, counting, absolutely transparent within the Ministry of Defense. There's access to all the figures starting from the very first year of the war. There's been always an access. When we've seen in the very beginning of the war that Russia attempted to undermine the support and assistance coming from the United States, because the United States was the main donor, and they wanted to undermine this through fake news, through other tools. That is why we told it once that we are open, send the inspectors, and they were inspectors. So as for the audit, we're always ready to any audit. There's nothing to hide. We're absolutely open, transparent, and that is what's happening. There's all the reports available. The second aspect, I never wanted to, I was grateful to all the U.S. taxpayers. I understand that the United States have different programs, directions, and that is also related to the weapons support and to the assistance of other countries of the world. I want to be absolutely frank. That's with regards to the audit. I have my own internal audit, and I clearly understand how much assistance coming from which country at which moment was provided to Ukraine. I'm not responding fully to saying that United States has transferred something around 200 billion. I'm responding to the facts. The United States could be, registering that, could be voting. And we are grateful to the bipartisan support in the Congress, because we are grateful to this unity around the fight of Ukraine for the independence and your great assistance and the great contribution of the United States in the defense of our people. But I have my own internal audit, and my country is clearly documenting how many assistance was provided. Just for you to know, we had 105 billion US dollars. Most of those money were in the form of weapons.
Yes.
Now, that's first thing. All of those weapons came. The money were paid to the transportation of those weapons. Ukrainian companies were not allowed to transport this money. That's why we haven't received, not in the public, not in the private sector, the money for the transportation. There were different assistance programs, the training of Ukrainian soldiers abroad. There's many things. I'm documenting and registering what we have. I understand there could be different calculations, different assistance programs or aid programs, but this is like an audit, really. You are verifying what was the output, so to say, and we kind of verify what was the input. We verify this because we need to, keep the phase in our relations with the key strategic partner. It's very important. It's not that we're arguing that United States have said that we're giving you 200 and Ukraine is saying, no, it's 100. No, it's not an arguing. It's not a dispute, but it's important that both countries and the taxpayers, they should know where their money are. So that's it. And I kept saying all the time, it's not that I'm not, properly responding to 200, 300, 400. No. I'm responding to what was the input, so to say, how many money came to Ukraine. Now, in terms of the use of those money, primarily that was for the weapons. They were used on the battlefield. And the audit that I've mentioned clearly documented that whether this weapon was used on the battlefield or in accordance to some of the information been posted on the media, primarily that was the Russian narratives that some of the weapons were sent elsewhere, or there was some corruption related to this weapon, something was sold. No, all the audit that took place, not a single time has found any fact of sales of U.S. weapons to somewhere abroad.
We've got passion, we've got determination. And if we set our sights on something, you better believe it's happening.
So there were no information like that in as weapons to somewhere abroad. So there were no information.
Oh, wait.
Secondly, the funding, they support the different social programs. That was different social programs, but the salary that we pay to our soldiers, the pensions that we pay to our pensioners, and we have 11.5 million pensioners. So the salaries and the pensions, these are only paid from the Ukrainian budget, this only by the Ukrainian money, not because we didn't need the kind of financial support or the support to the people. There were different aspects, infrastructural aspects, etc. We needed all of that, and we are grateful to all that. But the United States have to know that they were not feeding our pensioners and our soldiers with regards to the salary or the compensation. Surely you've provided the most important aspect, that is the weapons we needed to defend. Now those things are very important. Now there's special programs or separate programs, and we have the clear figures behind those. When the United States were paying money for the development of a certain direction in the technological kind of development, like in new drones, and there were direct funding either in the private sector that was constructing the drones like that. What the United States have received, well, the exchange of information. The United States, without the war, would never have received the knowledge. I'm not saying that war is good. That's horrible.
War is good.
Whenever we're saying what the United States have received, for example, when there were some programs, when the United States have funded the weapons and they were transferring the Patriots to us, and we are grateful to the United States, first of all, for this. They know that all the air defense systems that we had, different shells, there's artillery shells, even 155 shells could be different, the HIMARS, etc. All the Ukraine have been using. Ukraine provided the reports to the United States, and Ukraine has improved many of the elements and specifications by our engineers, by our people on the ground. They've improved the specifications of the weapons. The United States have received a true report based on the largest land war in many years. So now the United States know where to invest the money, where not to invest the money. I know those conclusions, but this is not public information. But the United States have received this knowledge, this data, and this knowledge could not be acquired without the live operations. Then the United States have provided money to the development of different drones. Surely it's all about our special forces, recon, intelligence, security service of Ukraine, foreign intelligence. These are the separate money. They are part of those 105 billion. So this is where the scientists were working, the recon, the intelligence, the military engineers were working. Now, what the United States have received, when the United States have paid for those developments, the United States have received complete and open information on the drones. This is the new weapons that was not available to the United States, to Europe, and surely we didn't have it. Now, the United States have received all this experience, all this know-how and developments. Now, I'm not willing to say that it's a cheap price for all of those developments. We are grateful to every single cent paid by the United States, but this is the fair price, so to say. The knowledge, the experience, that the whole world is based on the knowledge, and I believe that this is what the United States have received. Then how are medics being operating on the battlefield? Everyone knows about this. There's medical points or medical stations close to the battlefield where the military surgeries have been taking place. There's medical assistance of different sort that is being provided. Now, all this knowledge, all this experience were transferred to our partners. They've seen that they could make conclusions. They supported the people. The United States, together with the Europeans, have provided the support to the people, and I can give you the conclusions. You can compare the number of killed and the number of casualties. Now, I'm not comparing the Russian army with the Ukrainian army, but look at the portion of the wounded in action and killed in action. We have the portion of the wounded in action the lowest. If we have 1 to 10, that is 1 killed, you have 10 wounded in action. Now, in case of Russians, in case of 10 casualties, there will be 5 wounded in action, or 5 killed in action, or 6 by 4. So we're saying that's a different level of medical support, and that knowledge was also provided to our partners. Now, what exactly the United States have received as well. This is the most important thing that I have not mentioned yet. Let's be frank. The people in the world, they believe that we are living kind of fence against the Russia's invasion to the civilized world, including the NATO member nations. And we are kind of a living shield. We are defending this. So if Putin will come to the NATO member countries, or when he will do that, I don't believe that I know everything in advance, but let's just imagine, because everyone see who they have case with, so Putin might go to the European countries. Now, in this case, there would be a need to defend the European nations or to leave the NATO. I'm not saying whether the United States should be doing that or not. That's the choice made by the people of the United States and other allies, but this is a question that will definitely be on the agenda. So as long as Russians are not in any single NATO member nation, your families are not facing with this question. So there will be a major question for your families, either to send your child to the war or not, to the other country, to some foreign country. So that's the kind of question. Now, the cost of United States not searching and the families are not searching for an answer to this complicated question of whether to send their son or daughter, whether they will return home, like alive or wounded. Nobody knows the cost of that question. Whether the United States is the kind of the most the richest economy in the world, whether this is the biggest amount paid for what's being provided. I'm not saying that's a small amount. I'm saying that this is fair. This is fair. It's fair that United States assisted and supported Ukraine, and Ukraine gave away a lot in return for that support and assistance. And of course, the most precious thing we have is the life of our people.
So I want to get to Russia's intentions in a moment and the possibilities of a ceasefire, but Americans have questions about things that are happening here. So there have been a lot of accusations that there's been a crackdown on religious freedom in Ukraine, particularly with regard to the Russian Orthodox Church. I just watched you perform a meeting with the all-church meeting with members of a wide variety of faiths. Maybe you can respond to the accusations that there's a restriction on religious freedom with regard to Russian Orthodox in Ukraine.
Hablemos del salario.
¿Qué es lo que ofrecen normalmente por esa posición?
What the fuck is this? Oh, it's just Spanish. Okay.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy that you're here. That you had a chance to take a look, and really we have a meeting like that a couple of times per year, and I truly visit some of the churchill sites, and during the Easter there's the Eastern meetings and the Passover, and we have a meeting with all of our religious institutions. And I believe that what Ukraine has, and that is the largest council of churches, the largest in Europe. All of our churches are united, different religious, and everyone is united. So we are considering the question. There is the problem in military chaplains, the mobilization of pastors or not, or priests. There's different questions. We help one another. We believe that the religious actors, if they're on the front line, it could be only through their will voluntarily, and they should be supporting military. Now, if those religious actors, if they're willing to do that, we are kind of considering every single question. We do not believe that these are the major challenges, because we are having meetings. And if you have a regular meetings, if you have a regular dialogue, then all the big challenges, they kind of remain but only small ones, and in many cases we solve those challenges, but they're not catastrophic, they're not tragic for the country and for the religious unity that we have in Ukraine, and we are openly doing that. Now, they advocate what you've heard like abroad. They have one single voice, different faith, but single voice. Nobody's pressing anyone. So today, Sviatoslav went to prepare to he went to Rome, and there's all those ceremonies around the Pope Francis. So Sviatoslav went there, went to Rome. He needs that's correct, and I'm also planning together with my wife to have a visit. We'll have several meetings around the same dates. Now, as for the pressure, there's no pressure, and you will never hear about anything about the pressure because we don't have any additional dialogues with our religious institutions or religious leaders. There's no shadow practices. We're absolutely open, transparent. There could be cameras or no cameras. We're absolutely open. Everyone can tell you there's no pressure. That's non-existent, and every holidays we are together. We have people from different religions, and we're always inviting everyone. That's important. As for the Moscow Church, look, the question is not about the Moscow Church. The question is that in case of Russia, Moscow is just another agency of the KGB. Everyone knows that Russia's special services are in control of the churches. Well, this is how they have. That's their choice, and their people either support that or not. Well, that's their choice. That's their right. And we've never raised this question before the war and during the war. But that's a fact that their special services are in control of the church. The problem was that their special forces was in control of the churches in Ukraine. That's not the truth. The church should be equal, and the Moscow could not be in control of our church. Their KGB, their intelligence could not be in control or could not be managing the Ukrainian church. Well, they shouldn't be here. So the legislative changes in Ukraine are related to the fact that there could be no connection in between of the Moscow and the church. Nobody closed anything or anyone, but it can't be the case that Russia's KGB is in control of the church in Ukraine. Everyone is against this legal ties. So it's not only about the ties at the level of intelligence. There was a legal connection, legal ties for many years, but that shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't be having disputes or controversies around whose church is older than the others. And Ukraine is not shouldn't be speaking about this. Look, we're sitting here close to the Sofia Cathedral. Sofia is older than Russia's capital city and any churches they have. This building is older than that. That's the answer. We shouldn't have any disputes. We have scientific evidences. We're just saying that our church should be free from any authorities. It's free for the people.
So one of the other questions that's been asked is about military mobilization. So, obviously you're in the middle of a war. At the same time, there have been reports online that people are being picked up off the streets in places in eastern Ukraine and recruited into services. How do you respond to accusations and videos like that?
Look, every single case is scrutinized by the land forces, by the Ministry of Defense. They're the one responsible for the mobilization. And it can have a different attitude towards mobilization, but we have this mobilization from the beginning of the war. It's in accordance to the legislation, in accordance to the martial law period. So the country is in a war. That is why we do have mobilization. We want the war to end. We want everything to end. We want to have a fair peace, calmness, and there would be nothing, not the mobilization, not the martial law. But as long as as long as we have the law, there is the mobilization. That is why there were different aspects, like someone suggested money, someone took money for going or not going to the army. There's different approaches, or there are different cases, but we shouldn't be saying that this is the major phase or the main thing that describes Ukraine today. No, Ukraine has 800,000 right now, or 600,000 people who volunteered to go to the army. That was the law on mobilization, but the people were volunteering to go and defend Ukraine. Definitely, there's
So he's responding to like some kind of accusation that Ukraine is forcing people to fight or something, which is kind of funny.
Different people, and I think there's different people in every country, and the law enforcement personnel should be making sure that everything would be transparent. There would be no coercion or something. There are some kind of disadvantages. That's a fact. We shouldn't be hiding that, like a corruption. But if we have any anti-corruption bodies, there's the security service of Ukraine is. If we're fighting with this on an everyday basis, well, of course you can hide it, like everything as in case of Russia or some European countries. But Ukraine clearly shows that it is fighting on a constant basis against aspects like that. But those are kind of singular cases. This is not massive. That's more important, and that should be reducing on a daily basis. We're doing that.
Did you know you can AFK Bloods and Zaya whilst learning to code in Python? Go to boot.dev.
What the fuck?
As we mentioned, we left Kyiv on Tuesday night. On Wednesday night, Kyiv was hit with one of the biggest missile barrages of the war. We've been checking in on many of the people we met in Ukraine to ensure that they are safe. We'll bring you any updates. That was part one of our interview with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on Tuesday afternoon. Part two will continue on tomorrow's show. We'll get some more on this in a moment. First, according to a recent ZipRecruiter survey, 76% of employers plan to expand their headcount.
No fucking way. How many ads do you have, Ben?
Numbers, the law or the policy is race who get a particular benefit. That if there's a disparate impact of a law or a policy, it must be that the law. Just meanwhile, at EALTH.com/Shapiro, get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Meanwhile, in other news, the Trump administration signed an excellent executive order yesterday to eliminate the use of so-called disparate impact liability. Disparate impact liability is the idea that you can simply discern whether a branch of government or a company, for example, is racist based on the pure numbers of blacks versus whites who get a particular benefit. That if there's a disparate impact of a law or a policy, it must be that the law or the policy is racist. That, of course, is absurd. There are plenty of reasons for disparities in outcome that don't have to do with discrimination. And so the White House, President Trump, signed an executive order restoring equality of opportunity and meritocracy. That's the goal of it. The executive order says the bedrock principle of the United States is that all citizens are treated equally under the law. This principle guarantees equality of opportunity, not equal outcomes. It promises that people are treated as individuals, not components of a particular race or group. It encourages meritocracy in a colorblind society, not race or sex-based favoritism. Adherence to this principle is essential to creating opportunity, encouraging achievement, and sustaining the American dream. A pernicious movement endangers this foundational principle, seeking to transform America's promise of equal opportunity into a divisive pursuit of results, preordained by irrelevant, immutable characteristics, regardless of individual strengths, efforts, or achievement. A key tool of this movement is disparate impact liability, which holds that a near insurmountable presumption of unlawful discrimination exists where there are any differences in outcomes in certain circumstances among different races, sexes, or similar groups, even if there is no facially discriminatory policy or practice or discriminatory intent involved, and even if everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. This is a great, great move by the Trump administration. Should have been done long ago by Republicans going all the way back to Richard Nixon. Good for President Trump on that score. And one of the benefits of the Trump presidency, taking seriously DEI and destroying it. Really, really important stuff. Meanwhile, the White House seems to be backing off some of its trade war with China. Again, the signals are really quite mixed. Sometimes they seem like they're saying they're going to back off some of the tariffs unilaterally. Sometimes they say they're going to be negotiating something with China. Again, I'm very much in favor of a trade war with China, as long as it is well thought out, as long as all the preconditions are there. President Trump yesterday said the goal is to have a fair deal with China.
Can you clarify, Mr. President, on China?
Yeah, we are going to have a fair deal with China. It's going to be
fair.
How
the fuck do we care about this guy?
Actively. Everything's active. Everybody wants to be a part
Everything's
of what we're
active.
doing. They know that they can't get away with it any longer, but they're still going to do fine.
Again, the White House is considering slashing the China tariffs in order to de-escalate the trade war, according to the Wall Street Journal. President Trump hasn't made a final determination. One administration official said Trump wouldn't act unilaterally. He'd need to see some action from Beijing to lower tariffs. But this seems to be something the Trump administration is trying to back off of, considering the market impacts as well as the polling impacts. According to Pew, President Trump is down to 40% in the approval ratings. According to a Harvard Youth poll, his numbers have dropped precipitously, with young people. Just under a third of young people currently approve of his job performance. A large part of that is tied to economic uncertainty. White House spokesman Kush Desai said President Trump has been clear China needs to make a deal with the United States. When decisions on tariffs are made, they'll come directly from the president. Anything else is pure speculation. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent did tell reporters Trump has not offered to take down U.S. tariffs on China on a unilateral basis, so it may take longer than expected. However, here was Scott Bessent laying out the idea that we do need trade partners.
On this point, I wish to be clear. America first does not mean America alone. To the contrary, it is a call for deeper collaboration and mutual respect among trade partners. Far from stepping back, America First seeks to expand U.S. leadership in international institutions
That's such a bullshit.
like the IMF and the World Bank. By embracing a stronger leadership role, America First seeks to restore fairness to the international economic system.
Again, there is a very simple rule when it comes to the Trump administration's policy. Listen to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and stop listening to other members of the administration. Bessent knows what he's talking about. That is not true of trade advisor Peter Navarro. It's not true of some other members of the administration. Bessent does have a good, solid view as to what the Trump administration is attempting to do, and he understands markets well enough to understand the best ways to achieve all of that. Every time Bessent speaks, the market spikes, and there is a reason for that. Presumably, it was Bessent and his team who helped convince President Trump not to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell or threaten to fire him. That was roiling markets, according to the Washington Post. President Trump's abrupt shift in rhetoric on Tuesday toward Jerome Powell reflected the private lobbying of some of his senior advisors who had urged the president to back off his incendiary attacks on the central bank. And that is a good thing. Again, one of the things that's hilarious and amazing about what's going on economically speaking is that so much of it is just self-inflicted. If President Trump just stops doing some of these things, the economy goes back to something like normal. And if you're going to make major moves, you really do have to prep the ground for those major moves. Meanwhile, by the way, Great Britain is saying that they're not going to alter their standards or rush a U.S. trade deal. So one of the problems here for President Trump is many of the people he's negotiating with are not actually on board with his trade war. And so they're kind of eager to watch the United States twist in the wind a little bit here. According to Rachel Reeves, the British Chancellor of the Exchequer, she said that Britain will not rush into a trade deal with the United States or change its food or car safety standards. She said she wanted to reduce trade barriers between Britain and other countries. But they're not going to rush to it, which again is because they now believe that they have President Trump a little bit over a barrel in terms of this trade war, because the economy has been roiling thanks to the trade war. Okay, meanwhile, today marks Yom HaShoah, which is Holocaust Remembrance Day. And Holocaust Remembrance Day was commemorated at Yale by throwing water bottles at Jews. So things were going really well over at Yale last night. The Yale anti-Israel encampments are back. The Tentifada is back. They set up in response to a visit by Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is one of the furthest right ministers in the Israeli government. Around 200 people calling for the university cutting of financial ties with Israel erected tents in Beinecke Plaza on the anniversary of the first encampment, according to the Jerusalem Post. And there they set up checkpoints for Jews on the evening of Holocaust Remembrance Day, which starts at night in Israel. Just wonderful, wonderful people. By the way, I'm glad they're doing this because this is an excellent excuse for the Trump administration's Office of Civil Rights, led by Harmeet Dillon, to crack down on Yale and maybe start taxing its endowment or removing its federal funding. Because if Yale refuses to do anything about, like actually setting up checkpoints for Jews at the university, that is a violation of the Civil Rights Act in the same way it would be if whites set up a cordon to prevent black students from getting to certain parts of the campus. Here are these Yale protesters blocking Jews.
It's time to get your dream kitchen at Cabinets to Go.
Right now, save on every single cabinet in your display.
Every single cabinet. They're singing.
We can only go around. We will honor all our martyrs. We will honor all our martyrs. Fathers, sons, and daughters. Fathers, sons, and daughters. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
I mean,
I feel bad for
they're good at
Hamas.
chanting like robots. So that's exciting stuff. By the way, worth noting here, they're all masked. For those who can't see the footage, they are all masked using like N95s because they're some of the most pathetic people alive. All these people would be immediately tossed off the top of buildings in the Gaza Strip if Hamas had its way, standing there and blocking Jews from getting to parts of campus on Holocaust. Good. I mean, I guess good for them. They've got the courage of saying the thing out loud. By the way, where do you think those chants are coming from? We are mourning all our martyrs. Who are their? Have you ever heard that sort of language from the left typically? Like if you're at a normal commie idiot rally, do they use the term martyrs? Or is that language that is coming directly from fans and allies of Hamas? There's only one group on planet Earth who talks like that, who speaks about martyrs in English like that. And that would be radical Islamists. Most people do not speak like that, particularly not in the United States of America.
Mashallah.
And there's more footage of protesters blocking Jews and tossing water bottles at Jews and all the rest of it.
This is extra shit. We're not talking about Ukraine anymore.
The Jewish students saying they just want to walk through this part of campus, and they're saying no.
No Jews allowed.
Honestly, this is good news. I hope they continue to do this, and I hope that Yale gets absolutely clocked by the Trump Justice Department. I think that'd be an excellent and proper way to respond to the trash administration.
Okay,
over
Ben,
at Yale.
wrap it
so
up.
I asked my friends and sponsors over at Perplexity just how
Thank
big is Yale's
you.
endowment and also how much federal dollar. Waiting till
Alright, now it's just ads. Fuck off, Ben. Right. Crazy. This will ruin MAGA lives. Jesus. Which of these movies have you considered seeing in theaters? None of these. Lilo and Stitch, Mission Impossible, Final Destination, or Karate Kid? None. Sorry. Maybe like some of them look kind of cool, but I don't know.
I didn't even think about this. Oh, that's so fucking dirty. Why didn't I even think of this? Trump announced a big crypto coin, okay?
And this is why this is so dark. This is a zero-sum game. And that's also what I find so disturbing about this. It's the fact that the Trump organization actually knows that. They know that there is a certain percentage of their fan base that is dumb enough.
Based.
Your thoughts, starting with Trump coin. Trump is inviting the top holders of Trump coin to an exclusive dinner and also a VIP tour of the White House. This is great news, isn't it?
I think we are hit a new low where we're selling off access to the president in a dinner based on who puts the most money in a Swiss banking account. And the reality is, these are the amateurs or the people, the cultists who are fascinated by him. the most important people in terms of the Trump meme coin would never show up, because what they've done is they've bought a bunch of meme coins, probably with his permission or his encouragement, in exchange for geopolitical advantage from America. It would never dare thinking of showing up. I hope this thing gets a lot of attention and a lot of people start focusing on what is easily the greatest financial grift in the history of presidents. I can't.
What do you think is the most pressing issue for Canada right now? Honestly, it's probably the United States in dealing with the U.S.
Think of, I mean, it just cracks me up that people were pissed off about Hunter Biden.
This is corruption at its core. Folks, this is what people hate about the swamp. This is a part of
Drain the
Donald Trump
swamp
won in the first place.
And yet we have a meme coin. And he's inviting people to the White House for the dinner. I don't know. I find the whole thing, it's verging on comical if it wasn't so tragic.
There's no argument for this. You can't even attempt to steelman this. It is pure grift, pure corruption, using the White House, using the presidency as a vehicle to shake down regular investors, not wealthy political donors, which you can make the argument that maybe the Democrats do, but retail investors, in order to raise money, again, not for some greater cause, not even to fund some political campaign, but purely to enrich your friends, to enrich your family, and to enrich...
You ever hear these guys talk and you think, God, these guys are just so... They sound so mad that Trump figured out the great crypto scam before they did. And now they're just ass pained over it. Like, yeah, the president of the United States is scamming every single American, and he's opened up a potential avenue to accept bribes in a way that we'll never be able to verify for all of U.S. history. Problem?
Your allies. This is completely unheard of. And I just want to highlight that lockup period, which it was a 3-month lockup period. It basically meant that the insiders of the coin can't sell until the period expires. So this is very important. When, and we said this, we need to pay attention to when the lockup period expires. It expired
every 3
last
months.
Week. So
well, I think there were 4 lockups. I think there were 4, right? Because it's like 25% vested in 3 months, and then 3 months, and the next 25%, and then the next 3 months, the next 25%, and then, right? I think that's how it worked, right?
Is it any surprise that this bullshit incentive plan to pump up the price of the coin, which is leading to this rat race?
Wait, what's the incentive plan? Sorry, hold on.
That this bullshit...
What if the lottery was on your phone? With real tickets, real winners.
Oh, fuck! I didn't even think about this, because Trump is giving dinner or whatever bullshit to the top holders of the meme coins. Oh, that's so fucking dirty. Why didn't I even think of this? Because it's near your vestment period. This is when he can finally start offloading his coins. Oh my God.
Incentive plan to pump up the price of the coin, which is leading to this rat race where it's winner takes dinner with the president, that sent the coin skyrocketing up 60% in one night. Is it any surprise?
Is that true?
This coincides?
Wait, is there a TradingView that does TradingView host this coin so that I can see what it trades at? Or is there a website? When did he announce that? Oh God, was it on April 23rd? Trump announces dinner crypto holders 5 days ago. Good one. Jumped by more than 70% after the announcement. Oh my God.
Right when the lockup period expired. Definitely not. And I think what we'll find out soon enough is that the insiders, this was the Hail Mary that they threw right before they sell. And I would not be surprised if we find out, that they sold, that they profited significantly off of this, not in terms of what they realized in a gain on Trump in dollar terms. I think
the fucking looting 3 sword is so useful for that shit. Oh my God. I only killed like a few cows and I got so much shit from them.
They announced the dinner and then we find out they cashed out. And I just want to remind you again of the damage that this does.
From April 23rd to May 12th, hold as much Trump as you can. Your average holdings during this period will determine your ranking. The more Trump you hold and the longer you hold it, the higher your ranking will be. Oh my God.
To regular investors. Let's look back to a few months ago when the coin was first launched. You look at the on-chain data and you will find that there were 31 early traders who made a profit of almost $700 million trading this coin. And you think, boy, that sounds pretty corrupt. But then you see the 800,000 other investors who lost cumulatively more than $2 billion.
Based.
And this is what we have to remember about meme.
What's the significance of that announcement date? Okay, so the issue is that, like, I don't even know how many of you guys understand crypto. Nobody really understands crypto. So it's very frustrating when people talk about it because nobody really understands how f***ed up everything is, what's going on. Okay, but let me try to break this down a little bit, okay? So what happened was Trump announced a big crypto coin, okay? And the name of this coin was Drump, okay? When this coin was released to the public, however, all right, only 20% of the coin was available for everybody to buy. So this is what we can buy and sell, and this is what insiders hold. Insiders meaning people that get pre-approved slices of the coin that aren't available to the main market. They're not being bought and sold. So it's not uncommon that some insiders or some people will hold some amount of the coin pre-sale. 80% is a massive number, though. That's an insane percentage to be held by insiders, okay? Now, on top of the fact that insiders, so people that created the coin or allocated coin by people that created the coin, so Trump, right? Aside from the fact that these guys have a massive percentage of the coin, 80%, they also are making money off of fees from people that are buying and selling to run this whole pool, which is also crazy because they're making a ton of money just on people that are buying and selling in this 20%, all right?
Today's Wednesday. I get paid. Hold up. No, I don't want two-factor authentication. Fuck you. Bullshit. Nuts, nuts, nuts. Woo! $425. Not bad. Alright, hold up. Hold up. I'm gonna move some shit around. Let's see here. 425 times 0.2. So we want 85 plus 70, 155 in savings. How much was it? Fuck, how much was it? 100. Oh my god. Okay. Jesus. What up, YouTube? Alright, check this out. Now I got 725 in savings. That's pretty damn good. Not gonna lie.
So now a way that you can say, oh, well, this coin is legit. And you know how you know the coin is legit is you have this thing called like a vesting period, which is similar to people that do stock compensation for tech workers or, you know, whoever else. You have a vesting period. And what that vesting period said for Trump coin was they're not allowed to sell any of their coin until 3 months pass. And then in 3 months, I think they're allowed to sell 25% of the coin. So 3 months have to pass before they can sell any coins. They go, oh, look, so we know it's not a scam. It's not a pump and dump. We can't even pump and dump because, look, we can't even sell our shares. And then I think every 3 months afterwards, another 25% of this 80% here unlocks. Now, the dirty part is if they truly believe in this coin as a real project, you're not going to see them sell and dump because they want to support it or whatever. But what's actually going to happen is once this vesting period hits, what you would expect to see is this whole 25% chunk basically get dumped onto the market where all of these people are trading. And as it gets dumped onto the market, it's going to crash the price of the coin, which is going to drive down the shares, the value that all these people are holding. And it's going to allow these people here to extract a ton of money from these people because they're going to have their buys and sells lists and everything. They're going to be buying as these people are dumping. The price is going to go down, and then these people get to cash out. Now, it's kind of obvious that this is going to happen. So, I mean, why would you fall for a trap this stupid, right? Obviously, the coin should just crash.
It's Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, your DSCC chair, and I need your help immediately.
DSCC, Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. Cool. She's gonna beg for money.
Democrats and independents across the nation are rising up to oppose Donald Trump and his dangerous agenda. This
Fight.
that we all speak out. Please sign my petition immediately to join the movement and stand up to Trump.
What is this bait? 148 more signatures needed? Fuck you. I mean, like, that's cool, but that's bait. No way.
I need Democrats and independents to add their signatures by midnight.
By midnight. Tonight. Right now. Fight.
Right? Well, one, Trump is the president of the United States, which already allows it to float a little bit higher than it should. But now, what Trump has said a few days ago, before, I don't know, does anybody have a date for when we hit this first vesting period? What Trump has said is, I'm going to offer a dinner to where if you're holding a lot of this coin from between this date and this date, you have a chance, if you're in the top holders of this coin, to have dinner with me. But what that's going to do is that's going to put a lot of upward pressure on the price so that as soon as they hit this first vesting period, they can dump at a higher price and make a ton of money as they basically pump and dump this coin. And that was about a week ago they announced that. So, and then I'm guessing we're coming up on our first vesting period pretty soon here. So that's just, but the timing is just to basically inflate the price of the coin. It's kind of crazy.
And this is why this is so dark. This is a zero-sum game. For every winner, there is a loser. In fact, more often than not, thousands of losers. And, you know, the losers, I hate to say it, are the ones who are dumb enough to buy into this shit. And that's also what I find so disturbing about this. It's the fact that the Trump organization actually knows that. They know that there is a certain percentage of their fan base that is dumb enough to do what...
Why did you wonder if the announcement was on the 23rd? How did you so specifically guess that? Because the goal of an announcement like that is to pump up the coin. So I didn't need to know when the coin was announced because I can just look at the price of the coin and go, oh, wow, there was some major news, obviously, that pumped the price of the coin. You can see it here. And you can see that the price of this coin jumped dramatically on the 23rd. So that's probably when he made the announcement. Is what you can see right here. Oh, and the first 25% is already locked, so they could already be dumping coins. I don't know if people are analyzing wallets to see if, like, some of the original 80%, I'm pretty sure you can track the original 80% being sold, but that somebody more into the crypto shit would have to be able to answer that question. How the fuck is this legal not blocked? Because the Trump admin has already basically said they're not going after any crypto schemes or crimes.
Based.
So.
Whatever they... Okay, it's the fact that the Trump organization actually knows that. They know that there is a certain percentage of their fan base that is dumb enough to do whatever they tell them to do, to jump off a cliff if Trump demands it. Not the whole fan base, but certainly a percentage of it. And in this case, jumping off the cliff means throwing away your savings to bet on this rigged casino game that is disguised as a meet and greet with the president and a VIP tour of the White House. I mean, I am just still shocked, and I'm with you that it's comical. It is comical because it's so shameless. But that shouldn't detract us from calling it what it is, which is unprecedented corruption, and it is tragic.
His team also collects fees on each trade, and they've earned roughly $100 million just in January alone. And of course, you know, I love in 2016, he was just irate at the conflicts of interest and that Secretary Clinton was getting $250,000 for a speech. I mean, in this instance, he isn't even asking for donations. It's worse. He's asking for people to buy a volatile, unregulated coin that enriches him directly. And if I were Vladimir Putin, and if I get kicked out of Ukraine, it probably means at some point I get thrown out of a window. I mean, people who lose power in Russia, it usually doesn't end well for them. And I'm spending $60 to $100 billion a year on this failed war effort. I've lost almost 1 million young men, sending them into this meat grinder, which at some point has got to take a toll on the morale.
Anyway, you could quickly debunk the Pelosi insider trading allegations. That shit is so annoying to hear. There's no way to debunk it because there's no proof or evidence of it. So it's just an unfalsifiable. People just say because her husband is very wealthy, and he's a huge trader, hedge fund guy or something. They say that because he's very wealthy, there must be insider trading. But it's impossible to disprove that because there's literally no evidence that they ever provide of it happening. So I don't know how you're supposed to be able to say anything about it.
Popularity. Wouldn't he be just stupid to figure out a secure way, maybe using Signal on a phone, to call the president and say, all right, price discovery is dictated at the margin, right? If the Trump coin has a $7 billion market cap, you might be able to take it to 10 or 15 billion with just 100 million, 500 million, $1 billion in purchases, right? What if you said to him, look, I can make this thing, I really love the Trump coin, and I'm going to make sure that for at least 5 years until you're well out of office, that this thing never, or that at some point it's at least worth 50 billion, and your stake is 80%, so you're about to become the richest man in the world, President Trump, just because I love the coin. And in unrelated news, how do you feel about cutting support to Ukraine? I mean, wouldn't Putin be stupid not to make that call and make that offer? And two, wouldn't it be logical? Wouldn't it be the next point in the data pattern in the line for Trump to act on that call? I mean, he started a meme coin. What do you think he did it for? And
do you know what's really fun? Making a website on Wix.
Hey, we're How Ridiculous 3.
Please shut up.
The notion that he wouldn't be subject to this sort of influence, it just doesn't look at the corruption and the trail of bankrupt companies, the trail of unpaid subcontractors. And I'm incredibly disappointed the Democrats aren't putting up a better fight. I can't believe they're not.
I mean, what can you even do about it? Like, it's his DOJ. They're not going after crypto shit anymore. It's a fucking meme coin. Like, what? And the issue too about fighting over it is like just people just don't understand what crypto is, because their counter to this is they're just going to say it's crypto. You don't have to buy it. Nobody's forcing anybody to buy it. Like if people want to buy into a meme coin, they say that it's a meme coin. And they really truly do. There really isn't anything you can say about it. Like they're pretty open that it's just a scam. Like it used to be that people would pretend. First they pretended with big crypto projects. Oh, this project, check out the white paper on this, is crazy. Then they pretended with like NFTs based on other cryptos. Well, we're going to do cool things with NFT. And now people are literally just like, oh, it's a meme coin. LOL, memes. LOL, it's just a meme coin. And it's basically, that's just like, I don't even want to say it's a code word for a scam. It's just scams. That's all it is. But people seem to be okay with it. So what do you even do about that? I have no idea.
All over the press today talking about all the different scenarios for the Trump coin and how this is nothing but pure grift.
Let's move on to Boeing. And Boeing's earnings, they had actually a really good earnings report. Revenue up 18% to $19.5 billion. Deliveries up nearly 60%. They've also reduced their cash burn down to $2.3 billion. A year ago, it was $4 billion. And there was a really big pop in the stock here. I think, it was a great report. I think what really surprised to the upside, though, and what the markets are pricing in here, was how optimistic Boeing was and their CEO was, Kelly Ortberg, about the tariff environment. Because, meanwhile, you've got all these other companies that are somewhat freaking out about the tariffs. 40% of earnings calls so far this quarter have mentioned the word recession, which is unbelievable. By the way, 90% of them have mentioned the word tariff, and you actually called this. You said that tariffs was going to be the new AI on earnings calls. That is what's happening. But he did not seem that concerned about these tariffs. And he was asked up front, what about China? China is your second largest market in aviation. Well, are you concerned about that? And he didn't seem fazed. And if I had to paraphrase his response, it would be, we're watching it, but we'll be okay. And then he had this line where he said that 2025 would be Boeing's, quote, turnaround year. So very optimistic. I think what that tells you is that he and Boeing believe that these tariffs, particularly on China, are going away. And we'll discuss more what's happened in terms of tariffs and how Trump appears to be caving. But it is interesting that these earnings came out before we heard those comments from Trump. And so it appears that Boeing, in my view, had some sort of inside knowledge, or at least some inside feeling that, yeah, these China tariffs, they look very scary, but ultimately we're not too worried about it. How else would they not be worried about it if they didn't have some inkling or some real sense that these tariffs wouldn't be going through?
I mean, one of two things has happened. Either he called the Boeing CEO and said, don't worry, boss. Hey, do you want to come to my crypto meeting? Don't worry, right? We know you're a great company. Don't worry. And, let me put out a press release saying you're hiring more people. Just don't be critical of your earnings call, obviously. Or the Boeing CEO just said, this guy's full of shit. Nothing's going to happen here.
Could be that.
We make great planes. Airbus, I mean, the thing about it, this is a duopoly controlled by two companies, Airbus and Boeing. And even if Airbus, for a time being, makes a better plane, as the global economy grows and demographics grows, there's always a need for more commercial aircraft, and no one of them can produce enough. So it really is a duopoly, and they have incredible pricing power, and these are just incredible companies. And I think what he's decided is, okay, this is a fucking distraction, and his earnings seem to cement that. And while China's threatened to reduce their order book, I would bet the order book that the Chinese, the CCP, and the people at Boeing, who are very smart and hire former ambassadors, have all said to each other, look, there's a non-zero probability, a most likely opportunity that the order book and the way we do business is going to stay exactly the same.
What we're seeing with a lot of these big corporate CEOs, companies like Target, companies like Walmart, companies like, other companies in defense, like GE Aerospace, many of these CEOs are meeting with the White House, they're meeting with the president, and they're coming out of those meetings appearing to be a lot calmer. And in fact, this was reported by
and the scary thing, and we don't know now because we have no more insight into anything that happens in our government, and we're living in an unprecedented age of corruption. The thing we don't know is, are these people coming away feeling confident because they feel like the tariffs are going away, or are they coming away confident because they feel like they managed to cut a deal with this administration that's going to give them a competitive edge? But because of the current structure of our government and because of the moral failings of our current government, we literally have absolutely no way of knowing the answer to that at all. So,
Charles Gasparino at Fox Business, the administration at the White House is actually actively alerting Wall Street executives. They're reaching out and telling them that they are nearing agreements on these trade deals, which is a very interesting dynamic that we're now entering into a market and a world.
I don't believe that, unless I hear, because this administration has also proven that they will lie about anything, which they've done. I don't know. I wouldn't believe that we're nearing any trade agreement unless another country confirms it first, because Trump has said multiple times now, I think, that China and them have been talking or whatever, and I think China's literally just come out and denied it. Said, no, we haven't spoken to this admin at all. It's just
Great news, Spectrum Internet customers. Now you can try Spectrum Mobile risk-free for a full year at no cost to you. Bring your own device and we'll pay off your phone balance up to $500 per line. Plus, upgrade your phone anytime.
Bro, shut up. Leave me alone.
It's not true. So, I don't even know. No, it's not. No, I don't know. I'm saying I don't even know. We can't even trust the current admin that they are near anything, even if they say they are.
We're actually, the heads of the largest corporations and the heads on Wall Street, they're getting a heads up, and they're able to front run the largest news item of our time. And you could say, that this has happened in the past, but I don't think at the level that we're seeing today. Yeah. Usually it would be that with very highly sensitive economic data like this, there is a protocol, and the White House comes out and they publicly announce it, and you give markets an equal time, an equal footing to react to what is happening. But it appears that there's such a level of disorganization in the White House, and
corruption.
They're so freaked out by how the markets are reacting. It feels as if what is happening is the administration is having no choice but to call the big dogs of the Fortune 500 and say, hey, just don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. And that's material information right there. I mean, that is ground zero for insider trading.
He has been beating markets consistently at this. I guess he is a genius. Who Paul Pelosi has? I mean, you can link me something showing it if you want, but it has to be from a non-retarded website.
That hasn't actually happened yet, but we all know that the line between fair trading versus insider trading is very blurry, and we are in an incredibly blurry time right now. And we'll talk more about that in our main story when we really focus on these tariffs. Let's just move on to this new data on wealth inequality. The top 19 households minting $1 trillion in wealth last year. Biggest single year increase in history. They now own, those top 19 households now own 1.8% of the entire household wealth in America. That's up from 0.1% in 1982. By the way, the bottom 50% of Americans, they own 3% of the household wealth. So you've got half of America with 3% and the top 19 households with 1.8%. There are now 1,990 billionaires in America, and that number is up 45% since 2021, just 4 years ago. So we talk a lot about income inequality and also wealth inequality on this podcast. And here we have some new data, which is just telling us the same thing. We are a massively unequal society.
Well, to stick to the moral argument, it's bad for the economy. And that is when all of that prosperity is being crowded into the 0.01%. One, I don't think they have as much of a vested interest in public infrastructure and the well-being and prosperity of America. Do they have a vested interest in our healthcare system? No. Do they even have a vested interest in our national security? Because at the end of the day, they can piece out to New Zealand or Dubai or...
One thing, I don't know if we heard this on, it was one of Scott's shows or something else, but somebody mentioned this, and I just don't know the names of all these things, so I wouldn't be able to say, but I mean, it was said that it's kind of sad that older billionaires or older elites in society, the way that they left their footprint in American society was by investing in like elite academic institutions or elite cultural institutions or icons to leave their mark. And our current billionaire class doesn't seem to be as interested in making those same types of investments. But
London. So you're essentially creating a super class of people that control so much economics and have so much power over our government, but don't exercise the power in a means that affects all of America because they basically become sequestered from America and what's good or what's bad about it. They're literally behind gilded gates. And at some point, and I don't think they believe this, at some point people show up with pitchforks and lanterns, right? But if you think about third world nations that never able to get out of the way and ultimately end up in revolution, they have what's the common feature across all of them? Crazy income inequality. So this is not only bad for the economy, it's really damaging for our culture. And what you see here is that young people...
Yeah, I think the issue is that our current billionaire class are uneducated tech bros. Fuck, dude, it's actually really... It's really annoying. Maybe the elites just were better. They were just better people. They really were. They were just built differently. We need to bring back the real elite class and not the tech bro elite class. It's just not good. Let me use a restroom. One sec. Fuck.
Last week, Bernie Sanders and AOC held a rally in California, and 36,000 people showed up. Just for comparison, a Trump rally is on average around 5,000 people. The Madison Square Garden rally, that was 20,000 people. This was 36,000 people. And the message from those two candidates,
You know Harbor Freight for affordability, but durability goes right along with it. You see, we
Shut the fuck up.
Having a good show and getting people to show up for a rally is not the same thing as getting people fucking vote. You have to get these motherfuckers to actually vote for any of this shit to fucking matter.
Politicians is simply about inequality. That's the whole thing. And it's just so fascinating that 10, 15 years ago, when Occupy Wall Street was at its peak, people were saying this is a big problem. It's only gotten worse.
Yeah, it's gotten much.
Yeah, but the issue is nobody talks about what you can do to actually fix the problem. It's just a bunch of virtue signaling and cringe LARPing. Like, nobody actually has any real solutions. They just want to say the billionaires or whatever the else, and there's just nothing. There's no actual solutions presented.
Tesla's first quarter results fell short across the board, missing expectations on the top and bottom lines. Net income plunged 71% year over year, and automotive revenue fell 20%. Overall revenue dropped 9%. Still, the stock jumped 5% in after-hours trading. Part of the lift came from the broader market rally we just discussed, but investors were also encouraged after Elon pledged to significantly reduce the time he spends on Doge, and he promised to refocus his efforts on Tesla starting next month. Scott, I listened in on the call. The first thing to note is his opening remarks, which were a monologue about Doge and how important the work he's doing at Doge is. And if you're trying to convince investors that you care more about Tesla, your company, than you do about Doge, you should probably start the earnings call by talking about Tesla. Instead, he goes on about Doge and how he's saving America by cutting wasteful spending. Then he addresses the Tesla protests, which I credit him. He should. It's a huge problem for the company. But he makes this wild claim that the real reason people are protesting Tesla isn't because of any of his actions or any of his comments or the fact that he saluted a crowd in what very much appeared to be a Nazi salute. He didn't acknowledge any of that. He said the reason that people are protesting Tesla is because they're upset that Elon is, through Doge, restricting their ability to get government handouts. I mean, he really said this. He said those protesters, they're all receiving these wasteful and fraudulent dollars from the government, and it's because of Elon, they're angry. They're not going to get this free money anymore, which is just an insane claim that completely disregards what is actually happening to the company and its brand. And it's an extremely important thing to address. I mean, this 20% drop-off in revenue, it's almost entirely to do with the brand damage. So you have to be upfront about it, and you have to engage with that issue honestly. He was then asked directly about the brand damage by one of the analysts, and asked, what does this brand damage mean, or these rumors of brand damage, what does it mean for the company? And on that occasion, he completely deflects, and he starts going on about the macro environment, which didn't make any sense at all. He said, I'll quote him, quote, "Yeah, I mean, Tesla is immune to sort of the macro demand for cars. So when there's economic uncertainty, people generally want to pause on buying. But as far as absent macro issues, we don't see any reduction in demand." Doesn't make sense, and also it's completely...
Alright, I'm done with this for now.